If you want to see how this legendary Pen Duick model ship comes to life and hear the incredible story of the boat and the French sailor who brought her back from the dead, then stick around because you won't want to miss this. This is the 1:28 scale Pen Duick wooden model kit from Artesania Latina. If you are curious about the details of the kit itself, I have got a full unboxing review on my channel. But today, we are not just building a model, we are stepping straight into history. Let's dive into the build and into the fascinating story of Pen Duick. Before we got to her rebirth, we need to go back to the man who first imagined her, William V III. Born in Scotland in 1857, Five came from a family of master boat builders, but he took the craft to another level. His yards weren't just fast, they were breathtaking. Long overhangs, flowing curves, sheer beauty standing still. If you owned a Five, you owned both speed and elegance. Kings wanted them, tycoons wanted them, even America's Cup challengers wanted them. And in 1898, one of his most modest but magical creations slid into the water. A small gaffed cutter named Yum. She was sleek, she was elegant, and she carried that unmistakable Five touch. But like many yachts, she passed from owner to owner until the 1930s, when a French naval officer named Guy Tabarly bought her. Guy renamed her Pen Duick, Breton for Little Black Head, after the coated bird. The Tabarlys weren't wealthy yacht aristocrats. They were a Breton family with the salt water in their veins. Back to the build for a second. While working on the deck, I brushed on Artesania Latina's varnish dye, and let's just say I went a little heavy. The deck ended up looking more like a maple syrup spill than a polished yacht. If that happens to you, don't panic. A little rubbing alcohol will lighten it up. And a tip for next time, dilute the dye with alcohol before applying. Trust me, it saves you from joining the Sticky Pancake Club. Now back to Pen Duick. And it was on Pen Duick that Guy's young son, Éric, learned to sail. That boat was his classroom, his playground, and the place where a lifelong passion was born. After the war years, poor Pen Duick was left high and dry literally, neglected in sheds, her wooden hull quietly rotting away. By the time peace returned, no boatyard in France wanted to touch a rebuild. Too expensive, too risky, too crazy. She was put up for sale, basically left for dead. Éric, young, stubborn, and absolutely obsessed, he convinced his father to hand Pen Duick over to him. Some say it was a gift, others say he bought her. But either way, the boat was his. Now here's the fun part. Most people would have said, well, she's finished. But Éric? Nope. He looked at that pile of rotten timber and thought, let's try something nobody's ever done before. Instead of replacing the wooden hull plank by plank, he rebuilt her in polyester and fiberglass. Sounds so normal today, but in the 1950s, that was revolutionary. Almost mad scientist stuff. He used the original hull as the mold, layered resin and fiberglass cloth, and over the course of 2 to 3 years, Pen Duick slowly come back to life. In 1958, she sailed again, looking just as she had in 1898. sleek, elegant, Pure 5 magic. But now with the futuristic hull that would inspire yacht builders for decades to come. And honestly, it's a tragedy there was no YouTube back then. Can you imagine? Episode 17. Watch me rebuild a 60 years old yacht hull with this weird new material nobody trusted yet. That series would have gone viral faster than cat videos. But saving Pen Duick wasn't enough for Éric. That boat was his heart, but if he wanted to take on the ocean, he needed something new. So in early 1960s, he designed his own upgrade, Pen Duick 2. Unlike the elegant cutter, this new boat was a whole different animal. Éric went modern. A 44-foot cat built from lightweight plywood. Two masts, flexible sail options, and much easier for a single sailor to wangle across the Atlantic than the heavy old gaff rig of Pen Duick. She was bigger, stronger, and purpose-built for one thing. The 1964 Observer single-handed transatlantic race. And that race, Old Star, was wild. It started in 1960 thanks to a British eccentric, Blondie Hassler, who wanted to prove one sailor alone could race across the Atlantic. At the time, most people thought this was flat out suicidal. Crossing an ocean without a crew, madness. But Hassler's idea caught fire, and the Sunday Observer newspaper picked it up as a sponsor, thus the name. The first race in 1960 had just 5 competitors, but their tales of storms, isolation, and grit splashed across the front pages. Old Star became the laboratory of sailing innovation, autopilots, new rigs, multi-hulls, lightweight builds, all tested by solo maniacs out in the Atlantic. And they turned sailors like Francis Chichester, Shea Blyth, and of course Tabarly into household names. Now picture this, June 1964, the second running of Old Star. Plymouth, England is buzzing. Newport, Rhode Island waits across 2,800 miles of hard ocean. 13 skippers line up, each ready to do the Atlantic alone. Among them, the favorite, the seasoned Sir Francis Chichester's on Gipsy Moth 3. And then there's a dark horse, a young French naval officer Éric Tabarly at the helm of his Pen Duick 2. The gun goes off, and the day are off. No satellites, no GPS, no fancy chart plotters. Navigation back then was pure old school. Sextant shots of the sun and the stars. A good chronometer, dead reckoning between fixes, and barometer readings for pressure systems. If you misread the sky or your clock was wrong, congratulations, you were officially lost. Life on board was brutal. Food was tins, biscuits, jerky, hard cheese, and coffee so strong it could double as paint stripper. Water was rationed. Sleep came in 20 to 45-minute naps while the autopilot or balanced sail held course. To stay sane, skippers sang, read books, talked to themselves, anything to keep the mind steady against an endless sea. And then came the shocker. Éric crossed the finish in 27 days, 3 hours, 56 minutes. Almost 3 days faster than Chichester, and miles ahead of everyone else. It wasn't just a win, it was domination. So what was his secret? 3 things. Design. Pen Duick 2 was light, fast, and easy to handle solo. That plywood catch rig gave Éric the flexibility to keep her running, while others were struggling. Judgment. He read the weather like a book, catching trade winds and pressure systems that others missed. This wasn't computer routing. This was gut instinct plus barometer. Seamanship. Sail trim, reefing, constant maintenance. Tabarly kept the Pen Duick 2 in fighting shape the whole way, thanks to his Navy training and relentless work ethic. That race didn't just change Éric Tabarly's life, it changed the sport. From that moment on, solo ocean racing wasn't a reckless stunt. It was a proving ground, and Tabarly had just set the standard. When Éric Tabarly sailed Pen Duick 2 into Newport as the winner of the 1964 All-Star, everything changed. Overnight, France crowned him a hero. He wasn't just a naval officer anymore, he was the new face of ocean racing. After 1964, his life became a rhythm. Racing, designing, mentoring. He won the 1967 Transatlantic on Pen Duick 6. Trained a generation of young French sailors who would go on to become legends. And in the process, transformed France into a global powerhouse in offshore racing. But through it all, he never abandoned the little black-headed bird, Pen Duick. Whenever he could, he returned to the old 5-cutter, the boat that had taught him to sail. Then came the summer of 1998. Scotland was preparing for the 5 Regatta, a gathering of classic William 5 yachts on the Clyde, the very waters where they had first been built. For Tabarly, there was no hesitation. He would sail Pen Duick back to Scotland for her centenary, returning the old cutter to her birthplace 100 years after she first touched water, a symbolic homecoming. But the voyage turned tragic. On the night of June 12, 1998, while crossing the Irish Sea in rough seas, Éric went forward to handle the sails. A sudden lurch of the boat knocked him overboard. He wasn't wearing a life jacket or harness. Not unusual for him, a man who had always trusted his skill and sea more than safety gears. There were 5 crew members aboard, friends and fellow sailors. They searched frantically in the darkness, but they couldn't find him. Rescue operations were launched immediately, but Tabarly was never recovered. He was 66 years old, lost at sea on the very boat that had started his life's journey. His final voyage was with Pen Duick, bound for regatta celebrating William V, the designer who had first shaped her a century earlier. It was tragic, but it was also strangely fitting. Éric Tabarly lived for the sea, and in the end, the sea claimed him. His legacy endures. In the Pen Duick fleet still sailing today, and in very French skipper who dares the ocean alone. Éric didn't just build boats, he built a dynasty, the Pen Duick saga. And with it, the very soul of modern ocean racing. Today, Pen Duick is carefully maintained and operated by the Tabarly family and the association Éric Tabarly. Based in Lorient, France, she still sails, not as a racing machine anymore, but as a living monument, a floating reminder of where it all began. You will see her at the classic yard gatherings, regattas, and events that are celebrating maritime heritage. Every time her sail fill, it's like the spirit of Five's design and the Tabarly's legacy come alive again on the water. For me, building the Pen Duick model wasn't just about recreating a sleek and beautiful yard. It was about honoring a story. Éric Tabarly's journey, the way he chased his dreams, revived a forgotten wooden cutter, and at the same time pushed forward bold, radical new designs. That's what inspired me. His victories didn't just win trophies, they lit a fire. He turned solo ocean racing into a national passion in France and showed the world that one sailor, with vision, determination, and grit, could reshape the future of the sport. So every plank and piece of this model feels like more than just a build. It feels like a tribute to Éric, to Pen Duick, and to the idea that chasing your dream can truly change everything. Start recording. Start recording. 对，是的。不打呀，不打呀。网子在我这里，是不是三文鱼啊？是不是三文鱼啊？哦，开始的，是的嘞，是三文鱼嘞。不是，马上，你钓你的，你钓我的，我可以钓到网子上来。哎，跑过头竟然 ！Stop recording.